Hi, my name is Scott Moles. This is a screen test for Splash of Paint, and basically what I'm going to be doing today is using acrylic paints to do a wet on wet technique. I think you might find it very useful because it's good, because as you know, when you're using acrylic paints they dry very quickly, so this is a good way to cover a lot of area in a very short amount of time. So basically what I'll be doing is, these are the colours that I'll be using. I'll be using titanium white, processed yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt amber, oxidised purple, oxidised blue, and phthalo green. So I hope that helps. And I'll use a little bit of fluorescent paint as well because it brightens things up a little bit. So this is basically how I start. I'll take a little bit of white paint, spray the centre. If you're using white paint, it does help to spread the colours. So we use a bit of titanium white. I mix straight on the canvas, as you can see. I have quite a lot of colour. I'm using a 1/4 round brush, which is a very good brush to use when you're covering a lot of area. You can move quite smoothly around. You don't push the brush straight in, but you get the paint on there. And because the canvas is slightly wet, it helps me to move the colours around. So titanium white, I put quite a bit on. I cover the centre, because what I'm basically going to be doing is like a sunset, but I'm going to be using different colours which will help brighten things up. So it's slightly a different technique than we normally use. Once I've got the centre that I like, and I think I've used enough real titanium, I take a small amount of fluorescent yellow, and then basically I gently start working on my way around. As you can see, there's not much paint on there at the moment, but it helps because basically I'm going to be mixing it with the yellow, with the white, with the titanium white, and I just want to give a bright effect, so it gives you a lot of colour but not too much to start off with. This is a real good way to blend the colours as well, and every so often I'll add a little bit of water, not too much. I use a little spray bottle. This has only got water in it, which really does help. A little bit more, as you can see, not too much. You can always add to it, but if you leave the centre white and then work the colours away, I don't really change the paintbrush either. I try to use the same paintbrush and then work my colours in. As you can see, you can see it gives you the white effect. Now I'm going to use some yellow. This is Cayenne yellow, it's quite a rich colour. Then I can start blending it. And I add a little bit of water, not too much water, but it helps me to blend it. I don't really mix much on the palette itself. Because it's a canvas, I can actually blend the colours quite comfortably onto it. By doing this, it gives you a richer blend. Now as you can see, I'm working away from the white fluorescent yellow. And you can, like I say, you can cover quite a bit of area. This canvas is a 20" by 16". As you can see, I can just blend the colours straight on there. It doesn't look much at the moment, admittedly, but you'll be able to see it start to come to life as I work it. As you can see, I'm just using the tip of the paintbrush. I'm not using too much paint. I use the paint, I gradually build the colours up as I go along. You can see by using this, it gives you quite a good effect. A bit more yellow, because what I'm going to start to do is move away and use yellow ochre. But I'm going to add the yellow in. It gives you a real nice effect. You can see the blending of the colours. You can still see the fluorescent colours and the titanium white, but it gives you quite a rich colour to pull away from. Because basically what I want to do is I want to put a tree and a nice green area in. I want it to be quite a welcoming picture. It's quite a welcoming picture, and people quite enjoy the colours, the actual colour scheme. So remember, we don't go back on colours, so we work from the lighter colours backwards. So we don't really want to, we want to make sure that we've actually added enough of the yellow before we start to use the paintbrush with darker colours, because then I'll have to clean the brush or use a new brush if I want to go back to yellows. Yeah? So we're working away with colours. So once I've got enough of the yellow, which I think that's quite enough, yeah, then I'll go on to the ochre. And as you can see, it looks like a dirty colour, but it really does blend well. It's a very rich colour, and it works really well with the cadmium yellow. And as you can see, as you blend it, again I still use the water because I'm actually mixing it on the palette. I'm actually mixing it on the canvas, sorry. And it gives you such a rich amount of colour. And as I said to you before, it's very easy to cover a big amount of canvas in a short amount of time. You do have to, I mean, it takes a bit of practice. You do have to watch you don't put too much water on, because if you do, the colour starts to run. So it's better to add less water, because you can always add more if you need it. So as you're mixing the colours, you can see the yellow start to really blend well. Again, I only use a small amount of colour, and you can see how quick you can actually cover the canvas with the colour. And as you can see, the richness of the colour, everything's drawn into the centre, so it gives you a good perspective. I'm still using the same colour, but I'm just laying it on a little bit thicker than I was before. Again, we start from the back, a little bit of water, don't put too much. It takes a little bit of a while to get used to the technique of using a spray bottle rather than mixing everything on the actual colour. But I found this to be very useful because I sometimes paint at concerts and you get a very limited amount of time to paint. So if you want to cover the whole canvas with a nice background, this is a real good way of doing it. And I think many people found it useful. So hopefully this will help you out. Add a little bit more water. Again, you can see how the colours blend very well using the water. From the white further out. I don't overdo the colour, because you can always go back and add more colour. You see how the paint, oh, something else as well, if you notice I use the actual clips simply because I can get to the edge of the canvas very easy, rather than using the actual lip. So if you've got the carry pins on the side, it's a good way to actually hold the canvas. Let me just bring this around. Again, just gradually mixing the colours in. Again, I'm still adding just small amounts of water. If you're not sure about the water, you can always use your hand or a cloth to dry the brush off. There's no special technique to dry the brush off. Your hand does work well if you haven't got much time. Right. Now you can see I've got quite a lot of the burnt amber. Now I'm going to go on to a little bit of the burnt amber, sorry, that was yellow ochre, sorry. And I'm going to start blending the colours in. Now this, because I want to draw people into the colour, I start to use the darker colours on the outside. Gives you a very warm effect. Take that cloth. Sometimes you can actually squirt it straight direct onto the brush as well, if you're unsure. So as you can see, the paint, I don't actually use an awful lot of paint, it's right on the tip of the brush. So I'm not using a great deal of paint. It's very important I emphasise that, because if you use too much paint, you'll find that you'll be putting too much paint, it's very hard to water down the paint, and you'll be causing quite a mess. And we're trying to avoid that. So again, I put the burnt amber up to the top. You can see that there's a little bit of water there. I'm going to teach you something now. You can just dab. If you put a little bit too much water on and it starts to run, you can dab it away. Yeah, so don't panic, because we don't want to lose that white. A bit more up here, up on the corners, just to dry the colour in. That's it. Normally, when I'm spraying face on, I normally spray to the side. Yeah, so I don't put too much water on myself, because I've often made the mistake of putting too much water on. It's took me a little while to grab constantly how you put it on, because it's something that I've kind of developed slowly over time, so it's practice and error really. Right, so I'll put a bit more paint down there. Again, the clips come in quite handy, because I can actually go around the clips. The picture really does start to come together quite nice. Bit more at the top. Dry the colours. Can you see how good the colours blend? That's one thing I do like about doing this style of painting, because you can always add more colour, you can put more depth in it. By adding darker colours, it brings out the centre. You know, from the white piece of canvas that you saw at the beginning, I've drawn you into the centre by doing this. Simply by mixing the colours up and drawing the colours in. Right, burnt ambers next. I'm just going to put not too much of this because it is quite a deep colour, but I just want to draw you just a little bit more into the depth of that colour. So I just put a bit more. I'm going to be drawing slight landscape coming in this side. And can you see just by adding a little bit of colour, it can draw you further into the painting. It's quite cool, isn't it, really? The way it works. Not too much. I can actually start to see it come together now, really, to be honest with you. Because from this darker colour, I can just bring in that area a little bit. So it looks like there's trees in the background. Not too much paint. I mixed the two paints together. I think you can see just slightly mix them together to give me a slight effect. Put it on the brush. There we go. So it looks like there's trees in the background. Yeah. Now these are just, remember when you're doing shading, trees are drawn, when we look into the perspective of a painting, it's drawn away. So there's not much detail, it's just a slight shaping of the trees. I'm still using the same brush. Remember, I've not washed this brush yet. This is why this is quite useful. Because I don't really like washing brushes all the time, it takes a lot of time to do it. So as you can see, I'm just drawing away the colour. Now what I'm going to basically do here, so you can sort of get an idea of what I'm doing, I'm going to start putting in a bit of a landscape. I'm using a slightly darker colour so I can get the other colours slightly darker brown. Because what I'm basically going to do is draw you deeper into the picture. So as you can see, it gives you a bit of an awareness of what I'm doing. And it doesn't take long. I'm going to darken these edges down a bit. Because when we start to add the trees and the darker colours, now I'm drawing you further in. As you can see, I'm drawing you further into the picture. So I can bring these down a little bit. And I can kind of pick what I want to do. The good thing about doing these type of pictures is I'm not actually working from a picture. The picture that I'm working from is the one that's in my mind. So I can then pick and choose what I want to do with it. I want to really set an atmosphere more than anything else. As you can see by what I'm doing, I'm trying to draw you in. I'm trying to draw you into a place. And I can do this simply by adding the darker colours. Right, that's it for part one. In part two, we'll come back and we'll finish off the paint. I'm going to put trees and a landscape and you'll get a bit more of an idea of what to do. Hi, welcome back. We'll be going to the next stage. I've done the wet on wet stage. Now we're going to try a slightly different, different technique. I'm going to be painting some trees in. So what basically I'll be doing is mixing some burnt amber and some blue. Now I use a paint because I want to do a wet mix. As you can see, I want to darken it down because I want the trees to stand out. I want a nice shadow. So as you can see me mixing a bit of blue. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is really going to be, you can see how watery I do it. Looks a bit like that. So maybe a bit of that as well. I'm going to put the trees in about here. And there's no real technique into putting the trees in a bit more. No, need it a bit more wet. Yeah, I'm using actual burnt amber and oxidised blue. Sometimes it's good to add a little bit more water. As you can see, it looks like a bit of a muddy mix. But what I basically want to do is do the muddy mix. I want it watery, see? Now what I'm basically doing is twisting the actual paintbrush. And then I'm placing it on it. As you can see, I'm not really going really controlled. I just really want to put the shape of a tree in. Someone said to me a long time ago, the best way to do trees is when you're old. And I tend to agree with them because basically no tree is perfect, no tree is straight up. It's going everywhere. So as you can see, It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's good to get. I twist the paintbrush. This is a round number 8, I believe. No, round number 4. And what basically I'm doing is I'm twisting the paintbrush, and it gives you that shape of it going everywhere. Can you see? A little bit more watered colour that I've already mixed. And then I come off, that's it. As you can see, because it's got a water mix at the back, I can use the front part as a slightly darker colour, and the back would be darker, but we can bring a bit of detail in. See, I'm going to put a little bit more water. The tree isn't finished yet. I'm going to be using another brush in a second. I just want to put one on this side, and then we'll draw this up here. As you can see, I'm not going greatly detailed. I just want to bring in the shape of the tree. Draw it in. That's it. We don't want perfection to start with. A little bit more water, a little bit more blue. The blue is very strong. So when you're mixing it with a burnt sienna, it will take a lot of the colour out of it. So only use a small amount of oxidised blue. As you can do, I'm not really worrying about too much technique here, because basically the more wobbly your hand, the actual better the picture. Right, the second brush I'll be using is this liner brush. As you can see, it's got a longer end than a normal brush. It's very good for doing straight lines, if you're doing curls. Very, very good brush to use. You can get different sizes for different thicknesses. Again, I'll wet the brush, twist it on the actual palette. I fill the brush up quite a lot. So the second part is I'll follow it through, and then I'll start to make smaller. I've already done the bigger branches, so we can start to make smaller ones off of it. Again, the canvas will soak up the actual paint very quickly, so you really do have to load the brush up. A little bit more water, but burnt sienna, touch of blue. The darker the blue gives you a really nice effect, but I'm not really worried too much, because what I'll actually get from this is, as I twist it, a little bit more water, a little bit more water, mix up a little bit more paint. Again, same process, a little bit more water. And as I start to bring the colours out, there you go, that's better. You could see from the first few brushes that I didn't have enough paint on it. Or the paint really wasn't watery enough. Remember, acrylics can be quite thick. So by doing this, I can then draw the colours out. Put a few more on this side. There you go. Just to bring them out. Clean the brush off. Right, the next step is to start adding bushes and trees. So what we're going to do now is panthenol green, this is a very strong colour. I'm going to add the green. I'm actually going to do the trees first. Now we want to do a darker background, because we want to put more colour in front. So you can add panthenol green, a little bit of blue, the oxidised blue, and that will darken down the colour a little bit. We can add a touch of water. You can add a little bit of burnt sienna, just to darken it off. A bit more burnt sienna there. Then we can start. Right, it looks very similar to the actual colour of the tree that we've already done. But it's okay. Again, I'm using a round brush still, because this is really just for background. And as I start to bring the colours out, this is really just, I might add a little bit more blue. Panthenol green is very thick, a little bit more blue, a little bit more burnt sienna, a little bit more water, only a touch. And as we start to add the colour, this is really just for a background, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, just for a background. Oh, sorry, it's coming off. Let me just put the clips back up. And you can use a darker brown if you wanted to bring it further in. It's entirely up to you, really. You can add what you want, really. That's the good thing about it. Add a bit more over here. Really what I'm doing is I'm condensing the light to that area. And what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to use highlight colours to bring forward the leaves. I'm just using this as a backdrop colour. As you can see, basically, like I said before, this is a background green. to make the leaves pop out when we put them in. While I'm here, add a little bit more water, add a little bit more blue, bit of burnt yellow, and then we'll start darkening this area off because I'm going to highlight it now. I've done quite a dark mix. This is a good way to cover a lot of area quickly, and that's basically what we're doing. And normally what I would do is you can add halves, you can have flowers in it, but basically what I'm doing is, it looks like I'm blocking in quite a lot of colour. Because now I've actually put the tree in place, I'll be adding some grass and different effects. Use your front of the brush, you can actually just touch it up and it gives you a little bit more colour. But this is a good way, again, this comes down to covering a lot of canvas in a very short amount of time, and that's really what we're about today. I just want to teach you a few techniques on how to draw and cover a lot of area and come with a reasonably good picture. I think it's quite a good little technique to draw you into not being fearful of big canvases. A lot of people are. I've got this brush. It's not a very good brush, but it's very good for doing if you're doing bushes and stuff, because it's quite loose and not uniform. So that comes in quite handy. So we'll keep that one at hand. I'll just add a little bit more dark. As you can see how the green is lighter in the centre, and as you go further out, because the painting goes further out darker, we can add, it looks darker. I've added a little bit of purple, which is, I know it might sound a bit unusual, but you can add a little bit of purple to give you a darker background if you mix it with the oxidised blue. And this is oxidised purple, just to give you a darker area around the paint. Again, I'm just trying to draw you in and put a darker area on it. Touch of water, not too much. Half of the art of using acrylics is not using too much, unless it all depends on what style you're doing, of course, but it does help not to add too much water. And as if I want to get deeper in colour, then obviously I need more paint. So a little bit of oxidised purple with the phthalo green gives you a very deep colour, deep background. There's two brushes that I'll be using, this fan brush and this 1-inch brush. Fan brushes are very good for doing different techniques. You can do many different techniques, but you'll see this painting start to come to life when I start using it. So what I'm basically going to be using now is a cadmium yellow and the sap green. And then I'm going to start highlighting the grass. Can you see it start to pop out? The grass will start to come alive. From where it wasn't, it is now. So I can draw a few hills. Just really cut the colours in. It gives you a wonderful effect. And you can't really see a painting. A bit more cadmium yellow, a bit more sap green. Paintings don't really look like much until you start adding the highlights. The highlights are very important. So you must get your colours balanced out. I put quite a lot of paint on both sides of the brush, as you can see. And it gives you a better highlights. So I can draw the highlights in as I go. You can do how you want really. You can just draw the colours in. And spread the colours out. And you start to lose that dark background you had before. And I'll start to just highlight certain areas. See it? Highlight up here a little bit more. And we can draw it in. You can do as much of that dark colour as you wish. It's a wonderful technique to use. A lot of people use this using oils, but this can be used as for acrylics as well, as you can see. I love acrylics because they dry so quick, and within half an hour to an hour of painting this I can take it out, which is wonderful. Right, now we'll move over. I'm not going to clean that brush just yet because I do want to use it again. We're going to move over to the 1/2-inch brush. Same principle again. I'll show you. For the highlights of the trees, I'm going to use paint on both sides, and I'm basically just going to dab the colours in, and it will highlight the bushes. I don't want to use too much, but we can draw the colours out, and we can start to lose the colour in the background. Again, you could do a lot more detail with this painting, but this shows you that you can cover a canvas using acrylics Using not much paint, to be quite honest with you, in a very, very short amount of time. So wet on wet, and then using brush techniques, you can produce lovely paints. Thanks a lot for your time.